Welcome back to the channel. I thought I would show you around since I am in our Lynnwood branch and give you an idea of what the nursery looks like. Follow me. Our Lynnwood branch was established in 2006, and since then a lot of these fixtures inside the nursery has been here for many years. So as you can see, as I walk through the nursery, I'm going to show you a lot of bromeliads, tillandsias and orchids as well that we have in our Lynnwood branch, and just to give you a better idea of what they look like after roughly about 10-15 years. So stay tuned, have a look. We are situated on Lynnwood Road. The nursery itself is inside lots of pots. So I'm not too sure how many of you have been here, but if you stay in Lynnwood, most probably you would have heard of lots of pots. And we are literally inside lots of pots. We typically house a variety of orchids as well as your exotic plants like your bromeliads, like your tillandsias. Often people tend to walk through without lifting their heads. So I would like to draw your attention on some of these fixtures right above. So as you walk through the nursery, if you actually look around, you'll find that we've got massive tillandsias or air plants that has been here for, in some cases, more than 10-12 years. And that's what they would typically look like in the wild. So as we look at these bromeliads, you'll find that a lot of them are in hanging baskets. So which is a very different setup than what you would typically see in people's gardens. But because they are so versatile, they are actually capable of being mounted in hanging baskets or even on fixtures within the nursery. So I'll take you through and have a look at what I'm talking about. One of the most spectacular showpieces that we have within the nursery are these bromeliads. And you can kind of see exactly how they would look in the wild. Bromeliads are very hardy, and they can also do with our planting medium. As you can see, these ones we actually have on a coir pole which has been mounted for many years now. So typically from one bromeliad, every year you would have about 1 to 2 pups that grows out. So as time goes by, you're going to have 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16, and then as it multiplies, slowly it's going to become a whole cascade of bromeliads, almost like a curtain. The size of these are just magnificent. There's difference between these and compare them to your miniature ones. So there's such a big difference in terms of size per se. So the miniature ones are actually great, and we often have them for customers who are looking to create a generational piece, something similar to this one, which has been in our nursery for many years. And with your larger ones, as they grow, they're going to also become a big bunch of bromeliads that is going to show off its colors and its patterns. So every year, the new bulb is going to put up about 2 pups. 1, 2. And as it multiplies, it's going to exponentiate. And you won't typically find in your first year, it won't be as showy, but as you go to your 4th to 5th year, you're going to start to have and develop a big bunch of bromeliads very similar to this. They produce amazing, colorful flowers like these. And this one is literally just growing out of the crack from the sleeper wood. Alright, I hope everybody had a good look at our bromeliads. So if you get a chance, be sure to pop by our Lynnwood branch and have a closer look at these bromeliads in person. So sometimes I still feel that these bromeliads are so magnificent that the camera doesn't do its justice. Typically the temperature within this place will drop as low as 4-5 degrees, and during summer it can go as high as about 30-32 degrees. So as we walk through the nursery, you would notice that there's actually a lot of these misting systems that we have. The reason why we have them is to drop the temperature inside the nursery itself. So as you would know, we are in Pretoria and the temperature is roughly about 2 to 3 degrees higher in comparison to our East Rand or our Randburg branch. So by having the misting system, we are able to drop the temperature a little bit lower. And if we come to the back here, since that this is a closed tunnel, we also have extraction fans. With the extraction fans, it also helps to draw the warm air out of the nursery so as to cool the temperature down. And just a quick preview of some of our orchids that we mounted on wood, Lynnwood and Seps. If you'd like to see more of them, be sure to give us a comment and then maybe I'll do a video on them later on. Let's go have a look at our orchid section. So in our Lynnwood branch, you'll find that there's quite a range of different type of orchids, all the way from your vandas, your cymbidiums, your winter orchids, as well as your dendrobiums, your cattleyas, and a whole variety of orchids that is available over here for you to have a look, and also for collectors who are interested. Oncidiums. As we go into our cooler months in May, June, July, August, you're going to see a much wider variety of cymbidiums that is going to come through. And this is still early seasons. And as we go into our cooler months, be sure to look out for our workshop at the nursery. So I'm going to be doing a few more workshops on these cymbidiums as to how we would split them and then repot them. Our Phalaenopsis section. So you'll find that in our Lynnwood branch, there's actually quite a stockpile of your Phalaenopsis. So be sure to come through, as this is one of the places that you'll find a much wider variety of orchids and colors and sizes available for you to choose from. And of course, also our miniature orchids. One of the most spectacular orchids out there are these white Phalaenopsis, very popular for our weddings. And as you can see, as the seasons go on, you'll typically have a variety of different colors, a lot of different patterns. And this is the question I get asked all the time. What is the name of this orchid? And the thing is, as they are bred in Taiwan, the generation changes. Wow, like this one, what a spectacular one. Have a look at this. Very, very special. So as the seasons go by, actually many different generations would come about, and the same orchid that you would have 6 months down the line, it would be a next generation. So this is one of the reasons why a lot of these orchids are actually not registered, purely because of how quickly they actually develop. Exquisite. So through my workshops, I often get asked a question that comes up time and time again, and the question is, Ken, how can I keep my orchids alive in my home? And one of the main things that actually happen with a lot of the guys when they first receive their orchid is to treat it like a normal plant, like an outdoor normal plant. So the number one thing to understand is orchids are indoor plants and they don't require a lot of watering. So let me take you through and give you some guidelines and some tips. They don't actually need a lot of water. So So say for example, if we look at these orchids that we have over here inside the nursery, you can see we use what we call them sphagnum moss. And the reason why we use this kind of planting medium is because they hold actually a lot of water. Just as an example, I'm going to grab some out of this pot and then I'm going to give it a quick squeeze, and you can actually see it acts almost like a sponge, and such a medium is going to hold water quite efficiently over the course of a week. So typically in our homes, if we are in summer, obviously in South Africa, the amount of water that we give this orchid is typically a cup of water, and that cup of water is going to be retained by this sphagnum moss for roughly about a week in summer. And obviously if we go down into our winter months, starting from your April, May, June, July, August, almost towards the beginning of September, you only need to actually water your orchids roughly about once every 2 weeks. So compared to the pot before and this one, you can see this moss is basically dry. So by the time they are at this stage, this is where you would like to re-water them again. And that is going to take about a week to dry again, and then you would be good to go. Leave it for about a week. And I'll always say this to a lot of our guys who join our workshop: always have a routine. So if you water all your orchids, say for example on a Wednesday, then kind of stick to that schedule so that you know, I gave all my orchids watering, I watered all my orchids this Wednesday. And by the next Wednesday, it would be time for me to re-water them again. And really nothing technical. How we do at the nursery is basically take a watering can and then we water down as long as it's close to the base of the orchid. So as you can see, a lot of these orchids are actually planted into these pots, and there's actually a growth pot underneath here. And with that kind of growth pot, it's going to be sufficient for this specific orchid for a good 2 years. So if you water too far from the side, the water is just going to trickle down from the bottom and not feed the actual pot itself. So be sure when you water that you direct your water close to the base of the orchid. Or alternatively, you can also take this whole entire orchid and then dunk it in a bucket of water. And then as that gets soaked up, that water is going to retain in the moss for a good 7 days, 8 days during summer. And even in winter, it's going to hold that moisture for a very, very long time. And often if we see some of these orchids where they have got their roots that grown out, is this okay? Is this something that I need to cut off? Perfectly all right not to remove these roots. If it becomes a hazard for you, you are more than welcome to go ahead and cut this stem. And this is the thing, you know, there's actually no right or wrong in terms of how one goes about taking care of an orchid. For this root to be efficient for the plant itself, in order to take up moisture, ideally this root must be inside the pot. So inside the pot. So when we do that, as we water the orchid, this root is going to be able to extract that moisture from the moss into the root system. So in that way, it is actually more efficient for the plant itself. But as we go through, we'll have a look at some of the orchids that are literally bare roots. Now I'm going to take you through to our section where we have our vandas, where there's literally no planting medium at all. So here are some examples of vanda orchids, who has bare roots. So this is what the flower would typically look like. And as you can see, there's literally no planting medium on this one. And here is a good sign that there's healthy growth. So right across, we've got some of them that are in planting medium. And in doing so, they are just more efficient in taking up the moisture from that planting medium. But as we all know, or for those of us who know, orchids are epiphytes, so meaning that they are able to absorb moisture from the air itself. So their root system actually performs photosynthesis as well as your leaf system. So when we are spraying the leaves, it's a foliar feed. If we are spraying the root system, it's a root feed. And both ways are okay for our orchid to thrive. I'm sure there's a lot more questions that you have that I'm not addressing yet in our videos, but be sure to leave them down in the comments, and then I'll try and incorporate them in our future videos. So that's it for today. If you guys have any questions, be sure to leave them down at the comments below. And if you would like to see other types of videos, yeah, be sure to give us some ideas, and I'll try my best to answer those questions for you. And if I can't answer them, then I would always research and then try and get the best answers for you. All right, I'll see you at the next video. Bye-bye.